Welcome to Notepad. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. In this show this evening, we have the founder and CEO of Flux, a car service company that is operating in a very unique time because during a pandemic, we're not supposed to be moving about, but here we have Flux trying to assist people to move about with the necessary requirements and SOPs that are in place. So joining me for this evening is Aziz Aiman, trying to explain to us the idea behind the company and the idea behind the startup and how they plan to operate during the pandemic, particularly in a situation when this pandemic seems to persist longer than we initially thought. Aziz, thanks for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim, for having me.
Yeah, so when you guys launched last year, it was quite interesting actually to see another service being brought to the market. But the pandemic has hit us hard, and because of that, your business model needs to adapt to these kind of changes. But before we jump into that, let's understand a little bit better about what Flux is all about for those that might have heard it or might not have heard it before.
Yeah, no, perfect. So Flux offers a car subscription service. And essentially what that means is that you can have all the benefits of having a car, in your driveway, but without all the costs and hassle that is associated with car ownership. So just like how Spotify has disrupted the music industry and Netflix, you can stream, movie titles as well as television shows. With Flux, you can subscribe to a car where it's all inclusive. Insurance, road tax, maintenance, wear and tear, all bundled into one simple price. In addition to that, you get a concierge service to be able to handle all the maintenance and servicing, so you never have to step inside a workshop ever again. And what the real difference is that you can actually swap your car as your needs change. So for example, given the context of the pandemic, if you're currently subscribing to, let's say, a BMW 3 Series, if you are financially impacted and you need to be able to adjust your financial commitments, you can downgrade to that Toyota Vios or a more affordable car. And so that's essentially what we have brought to the market, launching in 2019, at the end of 2019, sorry. And it's really given an option for consumers to be able to still get the car that they want, but without all this hassle. Really predicate our business model based upon convenience as well as flexibility. And so again, this concept is new in Malaysia, but has been around for some time over in the US and other developed economies. And it's really taking root, I would say, as a new form to access mobility.
When you guys made the announcement that you guys are rolling out this service, I was rather excited, and I was the first to reach out to you guys to see if we can get you on the show and try to have you to describe to us the kind of business that you guys are pushing forward. And because of the possibility of the business growing, it seems like a good time and place to launch. It seems like the right business model are put in place, but then the pandemic struck us bad, and is still striking at us. How has the business adapted to these new norms that we speak of today?
Definitely no. 2020 has been a very challenging year. In a situation when we have this pandemic and obviously our country going into lockdown. So that means people don't need to travel or to move about, or they've adjusted to a work from home sort of environment. And so for us being in the mobility business, obviously that has an impact on demand and sales. So obviously in this environment, it's created a lot of volatility because consumers aren't demanding mobility, but the government did respond to that, offering tax exemptions with regards to cars, and suddenly everyone was in a car buying mood, and so that had a knee-jerk reaction, causing people to go around shopping for cars, considering what cars to be able to upgrade or downgrade to, because they want to take advantage of the discounted prices. And so obviously for us, managing this volatility was definitely quite hard. And to, I would say, to compound that, Flux's business model, we're not only just interacting and servicing our consumers who subscribe to our vehicles, but we also are a double-sided marketplace. So that means we acquire our vehicles, or we source our vehicles from automotive retailers. So all the way from authorized dealers, the distributors themselves, to used car dealers. And for them, it's sort of like the inverse. When there's a huge demand for cars, essentially for us, that means it's a dry up in terms of our supply. But in situations that we are in right now with our second lockdown, the supply is obviously bountiful because they can't be able to transact any vehicles at this. So because we're this matchmaking service that is connecting both the demand and supply together within our ecosystem, very similar to how Airbnb operates, it's abundantly hard when you have volatility on both sides. It makes the matchmaking process, I would say, even harder. It's still something I would say that we're figuring out. We're still a relatively young company, but it's very promising in the sense that not only like a service like ours has benefited from this sort of pandemic, because people are looking for lower financial commitments. And when you go to a traditional financing option like a hire purchase loan, you're kind of locked into that 5 to 9 year period. But for Flux, where you can kind of cancel your subscription when you don't need the car anymore, it makes things that value proposition, it makes things a lot more attractive for car buyers, because again, in these pandemic times, it's very uncertain what's going to happen in the future. Obviously, a lot of people have been concerned about job security, and when you think about mobility, one of the more attractive options out there is a car subscription service.
Yeah, of course, that's the main idea. You're giving consumers option whether or not they want to go for the traditional route, which is the 9 year loan or 5 year loan, versus the kind of subscription model that, quite frankly, is the way forward for all things right now. If you think about food delivery services, they also offer options for subscription services. And you look at all the other services out there, that subscription service has always been part and parcel of the industry. Say, for instance, the news agencies, for instance, if you're subscribe to Bloomberg or New York Times, there's always a subscription service there. But in this part of the world, car subscription is a new thing, but not something that the market is totally unopposed to. I'm pretty sure that the market is ready to accept. But because of the continued pandemic that is going to go on for at least 1 more year, but that's exactly what we said last year, right? It looks like, now that skepticism and that pessimism is creeping in, 2022 doesn't seem to be what do you call that, a timeline that people are shying away from in terms of solving the pandemic. So we're looking at a very long timeline here. Do you feel that consumers have the appetite to consume services like subscription to cars, at least in this part of the world?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's definitely I would say more challenging relative to markets like let's say Europe or the US, where leasing has been a more familiar service offering. So leases have never been taken up within Malaysia or greater part of Southeast Asia, and it's I would say it's deeply rooted in, I would say, stereotypically an Asian mentality where when I pay for something, I must own it, and it's something that we found when we first launched, which was a little bit hard to be able to break, to be honest. People didn't like the concept of, oh, okay, I pay for something, but yet I don't own it. I think whenever they thought about cars and how cars, again, is a very emotional and a very deep-rooted aspect of your life. In some societies, it's considered to be a reflection of your success and your wealth and so on and so forth. And so, the idea of that you don't actually own the vehicle was actually quite hard to be able to disperse. And so when we first launched, it was a pure outright subscription-based service where you're really viewing the car as a utility item and not something that you necessarily need to own. After all, it is a depreciating asset. But over time, after multiple conversations with our target stakeholders, our target customers, we launched a product called Subscribe to Own. So it's very much similar to like, a rent to own when you think about properties, where every month when you're paying your subscription fees, essentially a portion of that contributes to the purchase of the vehicle. So at the end of the subscription, if you want to be able to buy the car and own it outright, you have the option to do so when you subscribe to Flux. And so that allowed us to be able to have more meaningful conversations, and I would say would have softened, I would say, the skeptics who are perhaps not completely ready to be able to join the car subscription movement.
Right, thanks for that. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll discuss a little bit more with Aziz of Flux. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back. This is Notepad. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. Joining us on the line is Aziz Aiman, the CEO of Flux. He's also the founder of that company. Aziz, let's talk a little bit more about the company per se, because when we talk about a startup, we're talking about investors, we're talking about the markets that you guys are operating in, and we're also talking about the kind of inventory that you guys hold. Let's deal with each and every single one of them, starting with the investors. Who are your investors? How are they lined up? And what is the outlook in terms of trying to get your business funded moving forward?
So actually, right now, Flux is privately funded. We have plans to be able to raise our first round of investment. Obviously, the market is looking for opportunities right now to be able to invest in services that are, I would say, sustainable during a pandemic. And so, for us, we're really looking at opportunities to find partners who I would say are strategic in nature. I think you pointed out one of the things that are important to a service like ours is the fact of like, what inventory do we have? So currently we have a good mix between brand new cars as well as pre-owned cars and used cars. And so it's all about, a proliferation, and the strength of our marketplace essentially is the variety that we offer, the ability to be able to swap between, let's say, a Proton X70 and a BMW X5 is something that not everyone can do, but it's something that we strive and we aim to be able to provide. And so for us, from the investor standpoint, it's really all about like tying up with, I would say, key organizations that can help us propel to that vision that we want to be a regional champion when it comes to car subscriptions. It's only, in its infancy within Southeast Asia, and we think that there is a huge opportunity with regards to further expansion and further growth. Obviously, when we first launched, there were goals to be able to be nationwide at this point in time, but currently we're only within the Klang Valley area. But now those conversations and those initiatives have already kickstarted to be able to start this expansion, first across Malaysia, and then looking towards the beginning of 2022 to our first international market. And in doing so, quite rightly put, we are slowly expanding our, our inventory set.
Yeah, and the thing about your business is that it is while it services the traditional market of mobility, it also encroaches between that traditional and digital business, i.e. you can have the ability to enhance artificial intelligence, to create solutions for virtual reality, augmented reality, and so many others. What is the sense that you have right now in terms of pushing forward a more automated business model in order for you to actually fully embrace that kind of startup ecosystem where not only are you straddling between traditional markets but also digital markets as well? Talk to us a little bit more about how you are automating the business and try to embrace the AI solutions in the near future.
Yeah, no, great question. We Flux, we really believe that technology and automation can really make a big difference in the way that we do things, and we take that lens into every aspect of our business on how to be able to optimize it. And I think given the situation that we are in right now, the fact that we're doing this via a Skype call means that, even for Flux, we need to be able to, sell a car subscription, digitally to the consumer, and where, stereotypically, you'd be doing your research online, looking at YouTube videos, and eventually, at the end of the day, going to a showroom and test driving the car and seeing the car in itself. But how do you do that given, the fact that, one, we're a tech company and we're exclusively online, and two, you don't get the opportunity to be able to see, feel, and touch. I would say a big ticket item that you typically want to be rest assured before you make that purchase decision. And so for us, we're quite excited to be able to explore, augmented reality to see whether there's opportunities for you to be able to still have that confidence that you know exactly what you're getting, but via a digital channel. So having that experience to be able to see, the car, see the quality of the car, see all the features of the car, but without having to actually physically be there to be able to touch it. Again, this is in its nascent, I would say, stage, not only just within Flux, but within, a lot of the automotive manufacturers are all looking at how they can enrich the digital experience, because, essentially now they are forced to. And so again, that's definitely one aspect that, we're excited to be able to explore. But even more so, we're even looking at it, how we deal with it within, I would say, our daily operations. So with all, the cars that we have within our ecosystem, they're outfitted with a telematics device. So it can really help support and enrich the customer experience in the sense that, when let's say, for example, if you touch wood, get into an accident within, let's say, a Flux car, that notification gets sent into our central system, and it flags off an accident notification. And so what our customer support team does is it picks up a call and gives you a call. But if you aren't able to answer that call, we suspect that could be a major accident and you could be badly hurt.
It seems that we've touched a little bit in terms of who the partners will be for your business. Earlier on, you talked about Proton, but also there's a lot of ideas in terms of how you can collaborate more with car manufacturers. Also, you did talk a little bit more about insurance companies. And when we invited the CEO of Etika over to the show, he was talking a little bit more about how people were, individual car owners are a little bit hesitant in terms of putting telemetry devices in their vehicles, but for corporates and also fleet car manufacturers or fleet portfolio holders, they are more than open to put telemetry devices in their vehicles, because then they can understand a little bit better about the movement of their assets. And I think your business falls into that as well. So let's talk a little bit more about the kind of business partners that you guys are planning to work with, who they are, and what would be some of the key identifiable objectives that you want to achieve in collaborating with them.
Yeah, I know. I welcome it, to be honest, because if it was just us alone carrying the car subscription banner, trying to bring it to market, I would say it's going to be an uphill battle. You're right. You probably need to have a massive war chest to be able to work on the consumer education, to work on the different parts of even the supply side, to be able to get the education from the automotive retailers to be able to come on board and try to participate in our platform. But the fact that you are having so many players viewing this as a great business model, viewing this as a great opportunity, it's reinforcing the idea that car subscriptions is not like a flash in the pan. This is here, an innovation here that is going to stay and only become, I would say, more mainstream as time carries on. And so for us, I think it's quite interesting what service offering that they introduced into the market, because one thing is not all car subscriptions are made equal. Some people tend to unbundle things to make it a little bit more of you select what you want to be able to include. Some of them don't even include things like wear and tear as part of your subscription fees, and so therefore you would have to be paying it on an ad hoc basis. And some don't even offer the ability to be able to swap cars. And so, as a consumer, I would say it's very important because again with a streaming service you're quite clear on what movie titles or shows that are included as part of that service. With subscriptions, it's a little bit more nuanced in terms of what is made available, and so for us, I think it's quite exciting. I think it'll only further strengthen, I would say, the value proposition that each of the players have to be able to offer. And so at the end of the day, it's only like a net benefit for the consumer, because one thing, you get more choice across the different automotive manufacturers or independents like Flux, and two, you'll see that competition improve the quality of the service overall.
Yeah, okay, great. Final question, if people want to learn more about Flux, where do they go? How do they find out? What are the things that they must know about the company? Fantastic. Now, final question, if people want to learn more about Flux, where do they go to? What are the things that they must know about the business?
Yeah, no, great. So if you're interested in the car subscription, definitely visit us at driveflux.com. We're a web application over there. All the available cars, I would say, are listed online. But if there's something that you don't see that you are really keen on, so for example, as you know, the Proton X70 is a highly sought after, in demand car, and it's cars that we have gotten a few of, but obviously due to the pandemic, the production of those cars has been impacted. But if there's a car that you don't see, you can simply drop us a line, and it's something that our team can happily source from you from our various dealers and automotive retailers that we work with to be able to get that car in your hands.
Right, Aziz, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us. That was Aziz Aiman, the founder and CEO of Flux. We want to enjoy the kind of businesses of mobility a lot more, but because of the pandemic, we are, of course, inhibited by this notion of trying to stay put. So while I wish you guys all the best in trying to learn more about the business of mobility as well as companies like Flux, we also have to remind ourselves to stay safe, and for now, because of the MCO, stay put in your homes as well if you can. If you can work from home, please do so. But for now, if you've missed any part of that interview, please head on to astroawani.com, look for Notepad over there. There are plenty of interviews like this that can be found there. Till then, thanks very much for watching, and goodbye.